Welcome to the second of two videos looking at the AAT sample assessment for maths. That's the level 3 management accounting techniques unit. In this video, I'll be looking at tasks 5 and 6, which are the spreadsheet components of the test. I can find it. There we go. Right, so I've just done a video for tasks 1 to 4. I've got 1.5 hours still remaining, and I've got two 16-mark questions on spreadsheets to do. Before we get launched in, I just want to remind you of the task instructions, which say here at the bottom, when completing tasks 5 and 6 using the in-app Excel question type, you must not set a password if protecting a range of cells, as this will mean we are unable to view and mark your response. Okay, so the way this exam is working is that it is pulling an Excel spreadsheet up, but this is just in normal Excel. So you can see there, I've just minimized it and pulled up that Excel spreadsheet again. So what you've got is your instructions. Oh, Alexa's doing something. You've got your instructions, which I'm just going to sort of make into half the page there. So I've got the option to kind of work on a split screen, but for some things on Excel, obviously I'm going to want to make that bigger. But you sort of have a little play around with this and make sure you're happy with sort of how you can navigate around on the screen. Right, so 16 marks about the preparation of budgets. Mac Office Supplies Limited is a supplier. Let's just make this bigger for a minute for you. A supplier of office equipment and stationery. The owners of the business would like a budget preparing for the next quarter for the sale of all current inventory, as they are looking to promote new ranges. Inventory is held in 2 locations, the warehouse and the shop. An inventory count has taken place in both locations at the end of the accounting period. And these are the requirements of this spreadsheet task. Right, so just kind of getting a feel for how much is involved. So I'm just going to go down each part sort of line by line and sort of hopefully show you what I'm doing. So complete the following in the summary worksheet. In column B, use a formula to identify the total number of each item by linking the appropriate items in the warehouse and shop worksheets. Now, sometimes when you read it, you think, what? But then when you look at the spreadsheet, it becomes clear what they mean. So this is the summary tab. See, I've got summary, warehouse, shop, and what's that one say? Budget along the bottom. So shop, warehouse, and then back to that summary. So it says in the summary worksheet, so I'm in the right one. In column B, use a formula to identify the total number of each item. So you can see these are all my items down in column A, and all it wants me to do is add up how many have I got in the warehouse with how many I've got in the shop. And I've got to do that by linking the worksheets. So linking the worksheets just means if I go equals in there, click on the warehouse tab, pick up that 45, the 10-drawer filing cabinet grey. So you can see what's happening in my instruction line at the top there. So it's saying in the warehouse, pick up B3. If I then press plus and go to the shop tab and click on that same cell, you can see what's happening here, warehouse B3 plus shop B3, and then enter. Now, I could have typed that in cold, equals warehouse exclamation mark B3 plus shop exclamation mark B3, but far easier, I think, to do it as I showed you. Once you've done it for the one, I'm just going to make this bigger so that I can see what I'm doing a bit better. So I now want to copy that formula all the way down to the bottom. Now you see there's quite a lot here. So the one way I could do it is just hover over that right-hand column with a plus sign and double click. And what that does is it copies that same formula. So for all of these others, it's now picking up warehouse B49 plus shop B49, etc. It knows to move down a row each time. But the problem with that is where it says total here, it's put a figure in. So I would either have to remember to come to the bottom there and delete it, or if I just go back, the alternative option is just to hover over that right hand, hold down my left click, and then drag that down to where I want it to end. So either or works fine. And you might be wondering what these little green dots mean. So a dot means that you've got some sort of warning. So it's telling me that this is because I've got an unprotected formula. Well, I don't really care. It hasn't told me anything about that, so it's not something that I'm going to worry about. Okay, so let me put that back to half screen. So I've got my bits added up. So I've got my 1 mark for doing that now, hopefully. Part 2. The executive chair read back has a fault and can no longer be sold. Delete the row containing this item. Right, so I'm looking for the executive chair read back. Executive chair read back. Here we are. So to delete the row, left click on the row number 48, right click, and then delete, and it gets rid of that row. So another mark in the bag. In the summary worksheet, all items of inventory have a current selling price. So let's have a little look at what it means. So, oh, here we are. So we've got the current selling price there in row D. Yep, here. The business owners would like to see all products sold for a minimum price of cost plus 35%. In column E, calculate the selling price for each item as cost plus 35%. Right, so cost plus 35%, I'm going to click into cell E4, equals, I'm going to pick up the cost per item, that's the number that I want to add 35% to. And then I've got choices. I could either go times 1.35, or I could do times 135%. Doesn't matter, the system will know what to do. So if I enter that, you can see that it's now telling me it's currently selling at 1,200, but if I want to add a minimum of 35%, I've got to actually sell it for a little bit more, £1,213.65. Right, and again, I want to copy that formula all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so I've done that. Incidentally, you can use the highlighter here, I think. Let's just see. So you might be someone that likes to highlight as you've done things. That's just an idea. In column F, use an if statement which selects for each line the higher selling price. So what this wants me to do is basically in this column, it wants the system to return either this number or this number, whichever is higher. And it wants me to use an if statement. So I know to use an if statement, I put equals if and open a bracket. Again, there's 2 different ways of using the functions. I'll show you the other in a second. I just find this easier personally, but it's personal choice. So if, and then I need my logical test. So my logical test is to look and see which of these numbers is higher. So let's say if this number, doesn't really matter which way around I do this, if that number's higher than that, then I want it to give me the high number, the D4, don't I? So when I put the comma in my if statement, I want, if it's true, so if D4, if 1200 is higher than 121365, then I want it to tell me 1200, comma. But if it's not, so in other words, if this number is smaller, then I want it to tell me this number. Close bracket, enter. And it looks as if it's done it right because it's telling me that number, which is the higher number. The alternative way, if I just show you in this next cell, is to use this FX insert function button, which gives you the box if so, and it brings up this sort of box structure to do your instructions in. I don't find it as easy, but some people like it. So that's another way that you can do your if statement. Again, we're just going to copy that down, and then we're going to just pause and sort of make sure that it seems to have done what we think we wanted it to do. So that top one, we can see it's returned. Is this just telling me? Yeah, unprotected stuff still. So we can see that top one has returned the higher number. Oh, and then that second one down, immediately I can see it must be working because look, it's returned that figure. The higher, the higher. So just a little glance down. Has it done what you wanted it to do? Yes, it appears to have done so. So happy days. I'm going to use my highlighter to highlight what's been done. In column G, use a formula to calculate the total cost for each item of inventory. Right, so the total cost is going to be the number of items that I have multiplied by the cost. So my formula here is going to be equals B4, just click on the cell, or you can type it in, it doesn't matter, times, which is the star sign, the cost, enter. And again, copy that all the way down. Now, the reason I've not been doing the double click thing is because when you got to this one, if you double clicked, it would overwrite that color, which it is then telling you to use in a minute. So, you know, there's sometimes a little bit of a snag with alternate methods. Right, so we've done that one. Highlight. In column H, use a formula to calculate the total budgeted sales for each item. So here we're going to say equals our quantity multiplied by our minimum selling price. And again, let's copy that all the way down. And highlight. Here we go. In the coloured cells under the table, calculate the total figures for cost and budgeted sales. So that's these figures here. So we want a sum of these columns. So we could do speed sum, which is where we start here, highlight all the way down, including that cell, and then we can use, I'm just going to make it bigger because I think yeah, here it is, the speed sum, right? And then if I look at the bottom there, hopefully it's put the number in. Now, if you ever get this, it just means that the cell's not quite wide enough. So if you go to the line between the G and the H, can you see the little cursor's gone to like a crossbow thing? And then if you just double click, it will make the cell just wide enough to hold your number and make it visible. So that's one way that we could do it. If we now click on that, you can see what the formula is. So we could have just gone equals sum, open a bracket and then highlighted. We could have looked to see what the cell references were and just typed it in. So, but once you've got one in, then of course you can just drag that across. Same problem again, just double click to make it visible. Right, so I'm just going back to split screen. So I've now done that bit. Quite like this highlighting idea, actually. Right, part C, complete the budget for the next quarter by completing the following in the budget worksheet. So I'm now in a different worksheet here, Don't need to do any saving, by the way. You just work on it, and then it, in fact, if I try and save it, file, save as, look, the save as function has been disabled. So we don't need to worry about that. Oh, we do need to worry about working on the Excel. I accidentally shut it there, but it's still there, so it does seem to work quite well. Complete the budget for the next quarter by completing the following in the budget worksheet. So here we go to budget. Link the figures for sales and cost of sales from the total figures in the summary sheet. Right, so that's the one that we've just been working on. So I'm going to click there in C6 equals, go back to my summary sheet. I want the sales figure, which was that second one, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the bigger one. So, and then just press enter. And then for cost of sales equals, go back to that summary, click on that, press enter. Gross profit, calculate the gross profit. So that's just going to be equals sales minus cost of sales. Enter. So I've done that. The following additional information relates to the budget. So then it says calculate the information required in cells C9, C10 and C11. Right, so C9 labour, so 500 hours at £15 an hour. So I'm not just going to work it out and type it in. I'm going to use Excel. So equals 500 times 15 in there. Storage cost, 73 times 100. Other overheads, 75,000 per annum. This is for the quarter. So therefore, here I'm going to go equals 75,000 divide by 4, because there's obviously 4 quarters in a year. So I've done that. Calculate the budgeted operating profit in cell C12 for the sale of the existing inventory. Right, so this is going to be equals my gross profit minus, I could go equals the sum of those 3, but there's only 3 of them, so I'm just going to go minus that, minus that, minus that. There are different ways you can do things. As long as you're using the functionality of Excel, then you should be getting the marks. So that gives me 46,064. That's the end of that bit. Incidentally, I did have a look at the mark scheme on this one. There are 7 marks for your knowledge of accounting and 9 marks for your spreadsheet skills. So, knowing how to work out a profit, for example, would give you an accounting mark. Knowing how to link cells will give you a spreadsheet mark. You can have a look at that on the AAT website if you want more information. Right, but that is the end of task number 5. So click on answer. Just my meeting in the background, and then you can see it's taken me straight on to task 6. It's opened up the required spreadsheet, and here I am with another 16-mark spreadsheet question. So let's just make this a bit bigger to get familiar with it. That is it. That's all there is. Budgets and deviations. How Part Limited manufactures a variety of car accessories. The budgeted and actual results for the manufacture and sale of 10,000 units of product FO25 have been entered into the budget spreadsheet template. And then we have a whole bunch of instructions. Right, so let's see what we have to do. Format cells B3, C3 and D3. So that's these. To bold and center aligned. Bold and center aligned. Now I'm sort of feeling the need to get rid of the 0.00, but it hasn't instructed me to do that. So just do what it says. Right, I've done that. Format cells B3 to E20. Oh, here we go. B3 to E20. So that's there. To show 1,000 separator and to no decimal places. Right, I'm just going to make this bigger so that I've got the full menu. So I tend to use that as the 1,000 separator quick tool. And again, you can see that that's caused a problem with my cell column width. We'll come back to that in a second if we need to. But it also said no decimal places, and these are quite handy for this. So decrease decimal, increase decimal. So here, if I go click, click, you can see now that all my numbers do not include decimal places. Alternatively, you could have gone, oh, we want all of that, didn't we? You could have gone right click, format cells, and then gone into number, no decimal places, use the 1,000 separator. So there are different ways of going about things. Right, so let's go back to our instructions. We've done that. Calculate the operating profit and variance in cells B20 to E20. Operating profit and variance in cells B20 to E20. So it's just along here, using an appropriate formula. Right, so the operating profit is going to be equals income minus costs. That is going to be the same across those. And then the variance, calculate the variance using an appropriate formula. So a profit overall, so budget, actual. Did it say? I'm going to assume I want adverse variances to be a minus and favourable ones to be a plus for the time being. We'll correct it later if we need to. So if I was to do equals the actual minus the budget, I've got minus 1,800 as my variance there. Does that make sense? My actual profit is less, so I've got an adverse variance. Yep. So I think that's what that one wants. Correct the formula error in cell C8. Use formulas in cells C13 to C16 to flex the budget. So correct. So what's happened here? So the sales, they've said equals B8 divides B8. That's that. Divide by B3, 10,000. And then they've said divide by C3, when actually it should be times by C3. So, yeah, it looks, oh, bring an umbrella. So that looks reasonable. I've flexed budget. Sales is a bit lower. Right, then it says use formulas in cells C13 to C16. So that's all of these ones to flex the budget. Right, so fixed production overheads don't get flexed. So I'm just going to put that one in as the same number. But all of these are going to be flexed. So if we go equals that figure, divide by that times that. That's what we want to do. And indeed, it's consistent with the one that we just corrected for the sales. I could be clever and $sign the B3. So if I press, oh no, except I can't figure out what the shortcut is on this computer, so I'm just going to type it in. If I was to put $signs there and there, so I'm always looking at those same exact two cells, I should then be able to just copy that down to those other two. I did have a look at their suggested answers and they haven't done that. They've just typed it in separately each time. But again, it's personal preference. It might have told you to use absolute cell references. It is on the syllabus. Right, so then we've done that. Use formulas to calculate the variances compared to the flexed budget in cells E8 and E13 to 16. So it's basically this one for sales and then all of these. Right, so my variance for sales, actual takeaway flex. So does that make sense that it's a favourable variance? Well, I've sold more than my budget, so yes. Except I've just worked it out based on the wrong figures. I've done it on the actual takeaway, the flexed budget. No, that's correct. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing on the answer sheet. Right, so then the same here, but remembering these are costs. So equals now the budget take away the actual. So that's given me a negative of 940. So negative is adverse. Does that make sense? Well, yes, I've spent more than I thought. So then these are all cost variances, so I can just copy that down like so. Okay, so I'm happy that I've done that. Variances are classed as significant if they are adverse or they exceed 2% of the flexed budget. In cells F8, oops, what's going on? Right. In cells F8 and F13 to 16, calculate each variance as a percentage of the flexed budget to 2 decimal places. Right, so I want the variance as a percentage of the flexed budget. So if I divide the variance by the flexed budget, then effectively I could either times it by 100 or probably preferable is to use the percentage option on the system. We want 2 decimal places, so let's increase our decimal, and there we have it. Now we weren't told to format this. We've got Arial 12 where everything else is Arial 10 and it's bugging me, so I'm just going to change it. Probably shouldn't have done, but there we go. Right, 1.19 for that one. So then we can copy that. Same formula for each of these, working out those percentages. So we've done that. In a different colour, highlight all variances which need investigating. So we're told that anything that's adverse or more than 2%. So that top one there is under 2 and it's favourable, so happy days, don't need to investigate. This one is adverse and more than 2, so yes, I'm just going to use yellow, fill colour yellow, just said in a different colour. Direct labour is adverse, so, and it's over 2, so that's going to need doing. And that one's positive and under, that one's over 2%, so would need investigating. Protect the worksheet. Do not enter a password. Right, so to protect the worksheet, we go into review, protect sheet, don't set a password, just press OK. And then if you go to check it, it's not letting me, so I know that I've done it correctly. So I have done that. And then I say answer. I say yes, I'm going to submit the assessment. I've still got 1 hour and 6 minutes left. So that sort of shows you, just ignore that, that's just my video. So here's my feedback. Let's just make sure we did get everything right on those earlier ones. So obviously when you do these practice ones, it can't tell you how well you've done on the Excel. You will have to go into the answers, which are on the lifelong learning portal. I'm just showing you now. So 5 and 6, Mart scheme. All right, so that's what I was on about earlier, where you've got the accounting and the spreadsheet marks. All right, so it gives you that as a Mart scheme, and then it gives you what the spreadsheet should look like. And of course, you can click in to cells as you wish. So there's the one that we've just done, task 6. That's what it should have looked like. So yeah, looks the same as the one that we had. All right, that's it. I hope you found it useful.